I think there's a level of intensity in Arkham Asylum that has been lacking from other video games. In Arkham Asylum, it's the real world, and he's fighting real thugs and real killers, and people really do get killed in the game. It's a very, very scary world, but it's a world that he's perfectly suited for.
In Batman Arkham Asylum, we really wanted Batman to face the worst night of his life. And so by taking him to Arkham Asylum, the home of the supervillains and where they are all kept, we really could take Batman and challenge him in so many varied and different ways.
You're in this kind of dark universe where you're not entirely sure of anyone's motives.
From the very first cinematic, when I saw the picture, it became really clear just how dark this was going to be.
We wanted to create a game that was in a dark, gritty environment. Arkham Asylum really lends itself to that location and the kind of mood that every Batman fan really wants to play a game in.
When I started my career in the early 80s, there were a lot of Batman developments I'd see at various studios, and they were all brightly colored, kind of camp interpretations of Batman. And I would love to do Batman if we could make the cartoons like the old Fleischer Superman cartoons, because that should be his world. Art Deco, dark, with stirring music, a very cinematic take on it.
Creating art, in the Batman world was something very exciting for all of us.
Well, this is a different kind of animation than anyone has seen before. It's a very unique look, and I think the audience is going to get very excited by it. It looks great.
Something which is really big in the Batman world is the Gothic. So we try to really kind of push the Gothic elements, the kind of like Victorian era, a lot of like metalwork.
Gotham is an East Coast city, and it was built a long time ago, so there are a lot of English and European influences in its design. And that was perfectly captured, and I think that's very appropriate, because Arkham is really bedlam, and it really does have the look of an old madhouse. Inside, you know, there are some very sleek areas, there are some very steampunk-looking areas, but Arkham is really an old mansion.
Well, through the different buildings, we really try to recreate some kind of history even through these buildings. So if you're going from like Gothic to more kind of like Victorian era, where it's going with a lot of metalwork, with a lot kind of like creepy Frankenstein contraptions. We added a lot of kind of gritty, moody medical contraptions, and slowly we just saw it come into life.
The first thing we did is we just dived straight into the comic book history. You know, we bought everything we could get our hands on. We just piled up a massive stash of comics and just read through them all to really get a feel for this character.
We read up a lot of reference about the Batman universe, and we made sure that we stuck to sort of things that are already in the universe, but we slightly changed them to bring our interpretation of it into life. I think everyone's going to be happy with what we've done. There's not going to be people saying, no, it shouldn't be like this, it should be like that. They'll say, yeah, that works.
I think it's also got kind of a dual audience. In one way, we're using a lot of elements that maybe the comic book readers wouldn't get, but also we've got a lot of kind of little features in there where big Batman fans would enjoy and be able to spot. But it's also for the people that aren't big Batman fans, and they can also sit back and just enjoy the story.
The reason he resonates with audiences so much is because he's got no superpowers.
Because he's just a man, he could literally be every man. Okay, he has all the gadgets and the access to technology and perhaps things that your average man wouldn't have, but he is just a man.
I don't like it.
I think people relate to him so well because he's got that public-private dynamic, that struggle that goes on with him. All of us have a public face and a private face. We all have a private persona that we think, you know, is the world doesn't see. And so I think people relate to the character well that way.
Batman, I think, much more than a character like Superman, is sort of a wish fulfillment, because you've got anonymity thanks to your costume and, you know, cool car and gadgets. I think kids want to do that. You know, they start off loving masked heroes, and wouldn't it be fun if I could do that? And I think it's just an extension that we carry through adulthood.
We're at the moment now where we're thinking, God, I hope we can do this. I mean, I know we can, but now we have to.
Rocksteady taking on that challenge, you know, it's half exciting and half terrifying. You know, the burden's out there that the world wants a great Batman game, and to be honest, we'll want a great Batman game. So that's, you know, that's the inspiration as well for us, is that it just deserves, he's such a cultural icon, he deserves a game to match.
A lot of people at work say, don't read the forums, but I just get addicted to reading them. I read them and it says, Arkham Asylum and can't wait to get it. A lot of people say, bought, sold, yeah, we're going to buy this, and it really makes me excited. I can't wait for it to come out.
We've got a lot of critics that will be kind of scrutinising this product. So we have to be careful on kind of what we show, have to be very focused in terms of where we come up with the ideas.
It's very exciting to see people thinking the game is looking great, but they haven't seen anything yet. I can tell to the Batman fans that we've been really digging through all the graphic novels and stuff, and the game is full of cameos, of references from 70 years of Batman history.
This game has its roots buried really deep in the history of Batman, and that affects all the characters.
Well, the great thing about Arkham Asylum as a location is that all of the major villains in the Batman universe have been there at one moment or other over the last, 70 years. So it's very easy to justify why Poison Ivy's there, why Bane's there, why Joker's there.
Not so tight, boys. You'll crease the suit.
Gotham is a unique city, and it's populated by unique supervillains. And you just can't send these guys to a regular jail. You need a location that matches their twisted nature. So Arkham Asylum was created as this hospital for the criminally insane, and only the worst and the craziest of the criminals were sent there.
When you play the game, you can follow the story, but the more you know about Batman, the more this game's going to give to you.
Most of the voices, for example, are considered the archetypal Batman voices. So we have Kevin Conroy as Batman, we have Mark Hamill as Joker, and when we recorded them, they just added a level that was unbelievable to the game.
What they deliver is, because they've kind of done it before, they always have their own vision for it, which kind of lends itself very well to what we're doing coming from the comic and graphic novel side.
What took you so long?
They're playing characters that you've heard them play before, but we're not that game. We're a darker game.
Batman is a very special experience for me. He's just a very special character.
What are you doing? Someone get over there.
In choosing the game location, what we really wanted to do was to pick a location that could represent all the facets of Batman.
Some of the books, some of the comics, they actually put Arkham Asylum on an island, and we thought that would be absolutely fantastic for our game as a whole.
You can see Gotham in the horizon, the city skyline, but the entire part of the game is based in the Arkham Asylum.
And Arkham Asylum as well is such a critical location in the history of the Batman universe. It's such a kind of central heartbeat where everything passes through.
When you come out of maximum security, and it's the first time you see the overworld, and Arkham Asylum is just there in front of you, this huge, beautiful building. It's really epic.
We wanted to have different places which represented all of the different parts of Arkham.
The Batcave was one of the more important environments for us to get right as environment artists, and it's also one of the more important environments for Batman himself. That's where all his weapons are. That's where he does his forensic, his comms, things like that.
They created like a medical wing, so you go there, it's looking completely different. So you're going from like Gothic to more kind of like Victorian.
And then areas like the gardens, which kind of represent more the hope of Arkham. So you have this lovely balance throughout the environment.
One of the things we really wanted to do with this story is, as long as we've got Arkham Asylum as our theater, so to speak, we were going to cast it with his greatest villain, kind of like an ultimate Batman fighting scenario. So you're going to put him in a box, even if it's a relatively huge box, and fill it with threats he just can't escape from, his worst enemies of all time, the most violent, most unhinged, most nasty criminals he can fight.
There's at least 30 or 40 characters that we've built for the game so far.
When we started, we looked at who were the coolest villains that we really wanted to be in the game. Being at Arkham Asylum made it quite easy to put all of them in if we wanted. And then we looked at what would make the best gameplay, what would please the fans, started there and then just went for it.
We really wanted to choose villains who would push Batman in completely different directions. So we wanted villains who would really challenge the kind of psychological abilities of Batman. That's such an important part of the character that get missed. The detective aspects of Batman, the physical aspects, obviously that's a massive element of Batman, his navigation skills.
A lot of villains from the Batman universe are present. So you can see Joker, you can see
Poison Ivy, Bane, Killer Croc.
we got a brilliant design of Harley Quinn.
One of the things that really scared me the most was when I saw the models for the Blackgate prisoners who were put into Arkham Asylum. These guys were so big and so massive and so brutal, I didn't even want to look at them. Also, we use a character called Victor Zsasz in the game, who's the closest probably the real world has to a super criminal. There's an element of fantasy to everybody else. Yes, Croc is big and powerful and reptilian, but you're not really going to see anybody like that in real life. Victor Zsasz, you might see in real life, and you don't want to.
The nature of the villains in the Batman universe are that they don't necessarily want to work with Joker. You know, they've all got their own agendas. You know, most of them are lunatics or people who really just want to kill Batman. So, although Joker is in control, it doesn't always go his way.
That gives the game a whole unique flavour, and Joker's such a fantastic character to base the whole game around and to really be driving the whole experience. Because he's so charismatic and funny, you kind of hate him, but you kind of love him, because when he's on screen, he's just so funny and interesting, but you really want to get him at the end of the day for making your life such a misery.
Batman's surrounded constantly by Gordon and Oracle. Oracle provides his technical backup, plans, schematics if necessary for Arkham Island. She's kind of just off-site, being able to give him any information that he requires to solve crimes.
We've got two distinct kind of gameplay modes, and we want to achieve, with one of them, we really want to achieve a feeling that you're creating fear in the enemies, that you're really having an emotional impact on them, that they're reacting to the fact that they can't see you and you're Batman and you really are picking them off and kind of playing with them. The other kind of aspect that we work on for the AI is the combat side of things. Lots of people coming at you and you feeling like you're just batting them around, you know, you're dancing around, you're jumping over them, you're really dealing with this huge multitude of people that are coming at you, and that it doesn't feel like they're holding back on you.
So in Batman Arkham Asylum, we tried to create quite a complex, deep story where more's happening behind the scenes than you imagine.
The story is probably one of Batman's biggest challenges. While delivering the Joker back to Arkham, Batman finds himself in the middle of essentially a prison riot, which has been orchestrated by the Joker to specifically happen when Batman is returning him to the asylum. The whole thing is a massive setup, and it's Batman alone against an army of criminals, psychotics, and supervillains.
Begging to be slaughtered!
Well, there's so many awesome areas in the game. One of these areas are the Catacombs. It's a labyrinth of sort of dark tunnels, cave areas where the Croc lives. We've got a cross. It looks so good that you can almost taste the moisture. You can see it on your screen. It's that gritty, that dirty.
You can go in the sewers, you can go in the cells. You got a penitentiary building as well. You go in the caves, and of course you can just run everywhere you want, because it's quite an open world.
The whole game is persistent. There are no loading screens in the game at all. As you move around the game, you're in a completely persistent world, and that's really important to us, because it's important this feels like a real place. Hidden throughout the island as well are hundreds of secrets that you can move around and explore and get rewarded with. So the more you explore, the more the game's going to give back to you.
There are a lot of objects that Batman has in the game, the Batclaw and the grappling hook.
Batman, again, a huge arsenal of gadgets to choose from. We really wanted gadgets that represented not only Batman's navigational skills, but also gadgets that allowed Batman to interact in new ways with the enemies in combat and also in Predator as he's moving around. A couple of examples of those gadgets would be the line launcher. So you have a gadget which you can fire, which fires like a horizontal zip line that Batman can fly along across anywhere in the game. He can use this. And it's great for traversing gaps that you couldn't normally get across, but it's also great if you've got like 3 enemies in a row and you can fire it above their head and zip line down it and knock all those enemies out in one move. Some of the other gadgets that Batman's got include obviously his Batarang. It's really important that he has a limitless supply of Batarangs as he's moving around. He's Batman, so obviously he can pull out the Batarang and use that at any time. One of the other gadgets is the explosive gel, and you can get the explosive gel to blast through structurally weak walls.
But even better than that, he can lay traps, so he'll put this explosive gel on the walls, the floors, the ceilings, wait until the guys come along, and then he'll set it off, and all the shrapnel from the blowing up wall takes them out, and it's really satisfying to do stuff like that. It's great fun.
The difference between animating for the cutscenes from in-game is really the cutscenes are kind of specifically for a scene. From the storyboards, we start straight away on trying to recreate comic book frames and compositions. And everything we do for the cutscenes is very specific to the shot. We tend not to reuse too much, and with having the studio right next to us, it's very easy just to go in and kind of capture things that we want. Then we obviously process them, see if they work in the scene, and continue to work on them until they're right.
We actually worked on the cinematics for a good 6 months. I think that we became more focused as we moved on with the score.
We kind of work in layers, so first you've got your basic visuals, and then when the sound and the sound effects and all the music and everything comes into play, that's when it really starts to be something that you've hoped for from the beginning.
We had to produce not only, it wasn't only double the amount of animation that we would have had in previous titles, it's probably 10 times more, and the quality bar has really gone up now.
There's a clear difference between in-game and cutscene animations. The cutscene team have to animate to the camera, so they can accentuate key poses, silhouettes, and make it all work just for the camera angle. Whereas in-game, it's more about making it work as a whole, so the player can see it from all different angles. So you need to make sure that you animate every single part of the body. With us, we don't have much time to do anticipation moves. If he needs to jump somewhere, it does need to be instantaneous. He can't have a long anticipation and then jump, because it has to be quite responsive for the player. They need to be able to press the button, and it needs to happen straight away. So we've got quite a big challenge there.
When we started the project, that we wanted quality to be, paramount. It had to be paramount because people love the characters.
We wanted to do something that took from every great visual interpretation of Batman. So even though it doesn't look a lot like Bob Kane, you might see a little bit of, a hint or a throwback to him. It isn't solely the Wildstorm look. There's a little bit of Neil Adams in there. There's a little bit of Frank Miller. We just wanted to get something that gave the coolest visual interpretation of Batman and his enemies.
Also with Batman, in effect, he was two characters. The first character being Batman himself, his body, but also his cape for us was basically treated as another character.
The cape is obviously a big signature part of Batman.
In the comic books and the graphic novels, the cape is used to almost define a mood in a way, and it almost has its own character.
We wanted our cape to do that, which was like a major time investment for us to get that to work.
It's been quite a long slog for the cape. It's quite a technical thing to get right.
But we're really happy with how it worked out. Also with the cape, we wanted it to chart Batman's journey through the game. So when he had key encounters, we wanted him to, like for example, if he was to have a fight with Croc, then Croc would damage his cape in some way, and that would constantly remind the person playing the game of their journey and what they've been through to get to the end of the game. If you're going to make DC characters, then you have to give them, weeks and weeks. So we'd probably spend anything up to 6 to 8 weeks on a big, serious character. You'll work from the 2D image, but you'll actually end up with something that is different and hopefully gives more back.
Harlequin, who's kind of almost a young, athletic kind of character. We have to use the motion to get this across.
Our Joker is a little different. He's more dancing and more prancing around. He'll hop around and make really exaggerated expressions and stuff.
With the combat system in Batman, we really went back to basics and tried a lot of different things because we really wanted to get that feel of being a superhero. It's really important to us that when you pick up the pad, Batman, if he's taking 4, 5, 6 henchmen on, he doesn't have a lot of trouble. I mean, he's a highly trained martial artist, so we really wanted the player to feel that power. So the skill in the game really comes from when you're taking on 8, 9, 10 enemies, one with a taser, one with a machine gun, one with a pipe he's ripped off the wall, and balancing that danger in the room. When we looked at how Batman would take down a number of armed enemies, we really kind of, I guess the standard route to go would be to introduce a sort of stealth mechanic. But we thought that would make Batman feel really weak and scared of the enemies, and that's not what Batman is. He's a predator. He preys on these enemies, and he preys on the fear of these enemies. We looked at introducing what we called the invisible predator mechanic. Now, this mechanic allows Batman to move around in the rafters of a building without the enemies even knowing he's there, and he can study where they're moving and choose when and how to take them down. And that whole kind of preparedness of Batman is a really important part of his character as well.
It's a mix of mocap animation and more kind of like traditional hand-animated animations.
Motion capture gives you a realistic experience. With hand animation, you can get more of an emphasis on key poses, even in the sky. You still need to stylize the poses in the air, and that's where hand animation is always useful. The main villains are mainly hand animated because we want to capture that abstract feeling. People like Harley are acrobatic people, so we have to bring in a gymnast to do all the gymnastic moves like walkovers, flips, jumps, cartwheels, all sorts of things that nobody here can obviously do.
Well, we find that animators are actually very good at producing the results they want to. No matter how good an animator you are, it's that subtlety that really takes the time. And in games production, we don't have the luxury all the time of really spending a lot of time on the animation. So, you know, the ambient stuff we have in the background is looking absolutely fantastic now. This is our very own in-house motion capture studio. We're really lucky to have it. What we do is, after we've planned our moves, we get a guy into the suit and we cover him in these little shiny dots here. And we do a lot of calibration to make sure that the software understands the size and shape of his body. And then we're pretty much, you know, after initial setup, ready to start capturing.
I mean, I think the main kind of areas in which the AI really challenges you in this game is in the predator rooms, where you're having to kind of work out how to pick them off, how to take them out without being seen, how to create that level of fear in them. And, you know, as the game progresses, obviously the kind of challenge ramps up. This is the designer's main tool, this program, and this is how they put together levels, how they slot together the building blocks of a level, basically. See whether the level's set up properly to allow the characters to move around. So that's more to do with the geometry of a level, how the physical kind of layout of a level, but this is to do with the events in a level, you know, what happens and in what order things happen within that level. So this is what the designer would use in order to say, you know, create this character now, make him run over there, make him say this, make him attack Batman.
Batman is now en route to Arkham Island.
Look at all this new security. How's a guy supposed to break out of here? Don't be a stranger.
He surrendered almost without a fight. I don't like it.
At least he's back where he belongs. Get up!
I set a trap, and you sprang it gloriously. Now let's get this party started!
There's no escape, Joker.
I don't want to escape. I'm having way too much fun.
It's over, Joker.
Over? Why, my dear delusional Dark Knight, it hasn't even begun. control of Arkham Island, and you can all consider it out of bounds. If I see any lawmen, vigilantes, or do-gooders in tights coming this way, I'll start detonating random bombs around the city.
No, Bane. This time I break you. Get behind me, now. Bane.
Cut me down. Who did this to you? Sorry, has-been.
You have one chance to surrender, Quinn.
Tempting, Babs, but no dice. Now the inmates are running the asylum. Bye-bye for now. Ugh.